How often do you pause to be still, to truly appreciate your surroundings and blessings you have in life? As we turn the corner from a tumultuous and forgettable 2020 into what one could only hope is a more prosperous and fruitful 2021, I wanted to take a moment and engage in conversation in what it truly means to be grateful. For such an endeavor, I turned to the right man for the job, my friend Tommy Dahlborg, the host of the Strength Through Vulnerability podcast. Tommy and I connected to have a spirited and thoughtful conversation on the true meaning of life and what it means to be grateful. Let's kick off 2021 on the right foot. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Tommy, if you're ready, I'm super excited to be with you today to have a retrospective discussion about what it means to be grateful. Always great to see you, and thanks so much for making time for me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
My pleasure, Kevin. It's always great talking to you. You are a light in this world and a light in my life, man. So I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I'll send you the commission check in the mail for saying that. But yeah, tell me, when we look at the year that we just endured, I wanted to start you off by simply asking you how you got through the year and what has brought you most uh, uh, perspective in your life, buddy.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kevin. I know that everybody has had quite a challenging, interesting, different year, right? Needless to say. And I look back on 2020 with I look back on a lot of challenges. I look back on a lot of things that a lot of discomfort, but also a lot of growth and a lot of good change for myself too. And I like to focus on those things. I definitely consider myself very blessed, and I'm so grateful for the positive things that did happen in my life in 2020. I want to, before I get into some of those, I want to share that I honor and totally respect all the people and who have lost people to COVID, who have struggled with COVID themselves, who have lost their jobs, who are struggling mentally. Maybe their children or family members or friends have committed suicide because of the stresses that have come on due to the pandemic and staying in and losing jobs and all of that. There's a lot of crappy stuff that's happened to many people. And I just feel for everyone. I have also seen so many blessings this past year. My Personally, I got into an amazing relationship during this year, which was fantastic. My girlfriend Allie is my favorite person in the world, and I didn't know her before 2020. So in that sense, 2020 has been an incredible blessing. I started my own podcast, Strength Through Vulnerability, in January before knowing anything about COVID. And that has just continued to grow and continue to be an area of passion and fun and just a way to express my love and my story and the things that I believe in. My dad, he published his second book. My sister got engaged, like so many different things. And it's been a really great year in that sense, despite all of the challenges that have come along this year too.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. And I recently posted something along the lines of acceptance and not being so quick to rush to across the finish line of personal acceptance in terms of the court of public opinion and being more uh, cognizant of sort of developing your own identity and acceptance. So I can relate with you in that sense. And I also think it's important that we all take a step back to establish our own individual identity this year. And I wondered your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. So, in the sense of after coming off of a crazy year in 2020, are you saying that we need to take some more time to focus on who we truly are and figuring out who that is? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, no, I'm sort of, and I'm also saying that we have to take more time to take self inventory of ourselves and what it
Mm.
means to be our own individual identity instead of fitting into this artificial box of what everybody else thinks we should be and not to be boxed into a corner.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's so real. And I completely agree. I think that that's something that every single one of us needs to be doing, needs to constantly be doing every single day. And I think, I don't just think, I believe, and it's the truth. The 2020 was, again, despite the challenges, was a blessing in the sense of we have never had more time with ourselves than 2020, right? We were stuck inside for, some people for a lot longer than others, but I'm in Portland, Maine. So we were in quarantine for, I think, good 4-ish months of just basically staying inside. The only time you were leaving was going to the grocery store. And I had a lot of time to spend with myself, a lot of time to check in and see what was going on in my mind. Who was I? Who did I believe I was? And who do I want to be? And then start taking, like you said, inventory of all of those things, and then tracking what kind of changes do I want to see in myself? What person do I want to be? Who do I want to become? And what does it take to become that? Again, I think that that's something that we all need to be doing all the time. I'm still in the process of doing that. There's so many questions I have about myself and about what I want in this world. But there are also, it's interesting when you take some time to do your self inventory, you realize that there are some things that are within you that are just hard coded, it seems, values that are 100% you, that you want to, no matter where you are in life, no matter what your career is, no matter where you live, no matter who you're around. There's a few things that all of us really, really want and desire. For some people, that's constant career growth and just continuing to just crush it in their career goals. For other people, they want a solid foundational relationship and they want to really, maybe they don't work as much. They want to focus on those around them and spend as much quality time with those loved ones as they can. Like there's just some things that are innate within us. And I think when we do that self inventory, we allow ourselves to really tap into those things that are part of who we are. And then also it allows us the space to figure out how we can become the person that we want to be.
And Tommy, leading off of what you just said, I also think it's important to be balanced and sort of take stock of what really is important in life. And the idea, again, the whole point of this discussion is the idea of being grateful and cognizant of making what you already have be your world of domination, so to speak. So I wonder your thoughts on the concept of living a more balanced life this year, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is something that is really important to me, is finding a way to be able to balance my relationships, my staying healthy, from a COVID lens, but also from just a fitness lens in general, to my career, to so many different things. There's so many things to balance. And I think it's important to note that we, just like Mother Nature, we live in seasons too. Like there will probably be a season where you are emphasizing the importance of your relationships. And then there's another season where you are really grinding in your career. There's another season where maybe you're really grinding in the gym or whatever that space looks like for you. And finding a way to accept the fact that there are seasons, and then also to find ways to balance them in the sense of, okay, maybe like creating a scale is something that I think is really helpful. So taking a look at where you are in your life right now and figuring out what changes you want to see. What areas of your life are the ones that need the most change or the most improvement? And then really scale them out. Like maybe right now, I think that the thing I want to focus on the most is my career. So maybe on this scale of 1 to 10, the career scale is on an 8. And then maybe the relationships, maybe things seem pretty foundational. They seem in a good space, and I want to continue to maintain those relationships. Maybe that's at like a 5. And then maybe your physical fitness is right on par with where you want to be. Maybe that's a 3. Maybe you just keep rolling with what you've got, and you're putting most of your energy into your relationships and in your career in this example. I think that that's really helpful because we can't expect ourselves to be 100% in every single area of our lives. We can't expect ourselves to be perfect or 100% excel in every single thing. But what we can do is give ourselves some grace, pay attention to the different areas and aspects of our lives, and attend to those according with what we want to see, with what we want to achieve, with what we want the outcome to be. And so that's a way that I look at my life going forward in 2021, is taking some time to figure out, where do I want to see the biggest changes? How can I maintain what I want to maintain? How can I get rid of some of the things that I don't want anymore? And all at the same time, be grateful for what I currently have. Because you're so right. It's like, as a human, we always want more and more. You always hear this example of money or materialistic items. It's like, when is enough enough? And often it's never enough unless you learn to be grateful for what you have now, while also accepting that it's okay to want more too.
Yeah, and I also, for me, I'm taking a lot of time to sort of prioritize my responsibilities and what is truly taking center stage. And I think for me, a lot of it is goal setting. And I think I've told you this before. When I look at goals, I ask myself 3 questions: what's my time frame? What are my resources? And what's the objective? So
Mm.
once I answer those 3 questions, then I sort of put a game plan. The old sports reporter in me, Tommy, I can't get away from it. But I based on my answer from those 3 questions, I sort of, I don't want to say categorize my life, but I put it in a certain order that's important to me. Can I always say that people make time for the things that are truly important to them? And if they have sort of their own individual ranking system of what is important to them, it also helps them develop a disciplined plan of action. And I just wondered your sentiment, your opinion of that sentiment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that those 3 questions that you ask are really important. And I think that being able to answer those and figure out, because let me back up a little bit. I think oftentimes, I know, let me speak from my own perspective, I want to be great at every single thing. If I go golfing, which I love to golf, I'm not good. But when
Yeah,
I
I
go,
stalked your Facebook page. I know that. No.
hopefully you know that I like to golf. Hopefully you haven't seen how my skill level. But yeah, when I go golfing, I expect the best out of myself. I expect to be great despite the fact that I'm not. In my daily job, I expect to be great. In my podcasting, I expect to be great. But the reality is, we can't be great at every single thing. And thus, naturally, to your point, The things that we will become great at, the things that we will excel at or put energy towards are the things that we really do care about. You're 100% right. If maybe I really care about playing Call of Duty and being good at Call of Duty, for all the people who know that video game, well, I'm probably going to put a fair amount of time into playing Call of Duty. That's what I care about. And a lot of times I think we want to be great because we see those people, those athletes, those speakers, whoever it is, on TV or on radio or on a podcast or something, and we want to be like them because they're charismatic. They have an intense skill level that few people in the world have, and we can kind of envy that sometimes. But the reality is, when we do kind of check in with ourselves, maybe we don't actually care as much about becoming the best speaker in the world or the best golfer in the world as maybe we thought we did. Because if we really wanted that, we probably would naturally be putting in that time. So I think that you're very wise in saying that those three questions can open our eyes to what our true values are and can help us see what we really do want to achieve, what we really do care about, and then can help propel us in the direction towards improving in those areas.
And Tommy, in the lead up to this podcast, I introduced you as the perfect man for the job to have this discussion because your podcast is all about vulnerability and sort of coming into the center of our more vulnerable self. And I've been following you, as you know, on social media, and you had recently posted a video about men being more vulnerable and open to expressing their feelings. So I'm wondering for you, how do you personalize that particular message of being vulnerable yourself this year?
Mm. Well, I think by living it out, I want to be, and I'm going to be, a continuing example of what it looks like for a dude, for a guy, for a man to be vulnerable, to show up, be afraid at times, but still be willing to share my emotions. To, one of my favorite definitions of vulnerability is asking for what you need. Because it's scary to ask for what you need, whether it be asking for help, asking to be held, asking for a hug, um, whatever it is, right? Like, I think it's kind of no guy wants to be lying on the couch, injured, being attended to, feeling helpless. No person wants to feel like that, but no guy as well, right? Or maybe in certain circumstances, especially, no guy wants to. Um, and so I think that going forward, spreading that message is so important so that we can share with men that it's okay to ask for what you need. It's okay to open up and share your emotions with other people. It's okay to share those emotions and allow yourself to feel those feelings. That's a huge aspect of vulnerability that I want to speak on more, is that being vulnerable isn't just about being vulnerable towards or for other people. It's about being vulnerable towards and for yourself too. Because all those questions that you ask yourself when it comes to setting goals, those are vulnerable questions. And you need to be willing to be vulnerable and to be authentic when you're answering them, to really dial into how much you care about these things, what you truly value, right? I think that, and this over the last 20 years has obviously changed quite a bit, but for so long, it would be the guy who would be the breadwinner or the person bringing home most of the money, and then the woman or the wife would be the one who usually stayed home, took care of the kids, and that was often their role, whether they wanted it to be or not. It's great that that's changing. And what's important too is that a guy needs to be able to be vulnerable to figure out what their ambitions are, what their strengths are, where they serve other people and themselves best. I think it's so common for men to be pictured as the ones who are supposed to be making all the money, that a lot of men can fall into the trap of needing to find a way to make more and more money to get into lucrative careers. But maybe their heart, uh, maybe their strengths and what they're great at, maybe it's being the stay-at-home dad. Maybe it's being the person who isn't bringing home all the money, but it's supporting their wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, right? It takes being vulnerable to really tap into and be honest about what it is that we want, what it is that we believe to be true about ourselves, what our strengths and our goals are.
And yeah, and over the course of the holiday break, Tommy, I also did some retrospective in what it truly means to like peel back the onion in terms of your artificial layers of protection and not wanting to be so, for a lack of a better term, superficially protected. And I, I also came to this realization that once you peel back the layers of artificial protection, you actually then discover what your true identity is, because you have to discover your inner strength. So I just wanted your perspective on that notion as well.
So the no, well, I agree. I agree that we need to, part of being vulnerable is figuring out how we put our guard up, figuring out what our shields are or what our armor is. And naturally, as a human being, we, whether that guard is something physical, like somebody's actually going to attack you and you're like blocking them, or it's an emotional guard, like emotional eating, for example. That's something that I do. Um, Becoming, when we're vulnerable, we get to see what those things are. And that helps us to tap deeper into who we truly are. By seeing what our natural armor is, we can sense it. That's not the word I want. We can, by being more attentive to it, when it starts to come up again, when you start to reach for that bag of chips instead of maybe breathing to calm down or to be more comfortable, we're able to love ourselves in a different way, right? By seeing what those cheap forms of armor are, we're able to replace those cheap forms of armor and open ourselves up to hurt, to non-life threatening danger, right? um and and reveal our true selves to ourselves, but also to other people. I think a good example of this is, for example, with podcasting, right? I wanted to start a podcast for at least a year. I think it was a couple years I wanted to start a podcast, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to talk about. And then eventually it came to me that I should talk about the thing that affects me every single day, which is mental health, my belief in the power of story and the power of vulnerability. And yet there's still that fear factor, right? There's still that desire to protect yourself by not starting that podcast, by staying quiet, for example. But when you can tap into what that armor is, and in this case it was not wanting to start that podcast or not taking the action to start that podcast, you can tap into that and realize, like, hey, you don't actually need this armor. You can actually start this podcast, and hey, maybe you're actually going to get more life out of it than you are out of hiding, right? And that's been the result. The result has been I've met incredible people, like yourself. I've had amazing conversations. I've grown myself as an individual and also as a podcast host and a podcast guest. And it's continued to serve other people and serve myself. So it's when you are able to tap into those layers of protection, those layers of the onion that you mentioned earlier, you're able to you're able to tap into those ways that you can actually live your life more wholeheartedly and more fully, and actually live life instead of just existing.
Yeah, and I'm curious to ask you this question. I've got a couple of more for you, but I'm curious to ask you what's the one personal promise that you're committed to making to yourself in 2021?
Mm, personal problem. Wow, Kevin, that's really I haven't necessarily thought about that yet for this coming year. But the one that came immediately to my mind is just continuing to show up authentically as me over and over again. Because I'm somebody who, you know, I of course strive to be as authentic as I can. With that said, like most humans, I can put on a mask. I can become who the crowd wants me to be. And so, for example, if I'm at a party or a gathering or something like that, which didn't happen often in 2020, I can be the one to go out of my way to make people laugh because I like to make people laugh, but I also know that it brings comfort to myself too. It makes you feel like you're being accepted. But what would it be like to show up to that party, to that gathering, and just be whoever Tommy is instead of trying to make other people laugh to try to be accepted, to try to fit in, you know? Um, that's something that's been a focus of mine for a few years now. And of course I've gotten a lot better in that department, but it's definitely a continued focus and promise for myself going forward.
Yeah, I guess in the interest of fairness, I should share one of my personal promises to myself this year.
I would love to
Um,
hear.
I actually have a couple. I want to continue to grow as a podcaster and
Mhm.
be more consistent and reliable to my audience in terms of the diversity of content that I give to them. I want to be more present as an individual when I have one-on-one conversations instead of always trying to be a multitasker, because one of the things that I have to learn to do as a person is to be more centered on individual topics or issues instead of trying to solve everything at once. And one thing I have to learn about myself is that every email doesn't have to be answered as soon as it gets into my inbox. So I want, for myself personally, to grow as a journalist and be more present in terms of the relationships I build or the connections that I make in the upcoming year.
I like that a lot. I think that's really good. And amen to the whole email thing. I am absolutely somebody who, when I see the notification come in, I feel the urge. I feel like I need to respond to this person or they're going to feel like I'm ignoring them. But that's not the case, especially with email. Email people don't expect you to get back as soon as you see the email.
Or texting. I have to do
Mm,
the same with texting, Tommy.
I hear that.
I'm because it's the journalist in me, right? Because when you send information out and you need a response, you want instant gratification, or you want to know that you're being responsive as a journalist, and you want people to be engaged in what you're asking them to do. But you also have to find a space within yourself to be present within your own life as well.
Absolutely. I
So,
agree.
Tommy, as we wrap this up, I'm curious. I've got two more for you. In terms of building your own personalization for 2021, in terms of whether it be extending yourself as a podcaster, a boyfriend, uh, building on your relationship with your girlfriend, being more present with your parents, or whatever it may be, whether it be personal or professional. How are you going to personalize your definition of success for a successful year in 2021?
Mm. Man, Kevin, these are some really good questions. I just want to say that right now. You've been asking great questions this entire conversation. And in terms of what I see success being for me in 2021, it's continuing to grow in my love for my girlfriend. It's continuing to show up for all those people that I love in my life, be it my parents who do live afar, they live multiple states away. So putting in more effort to staying in communication with
They
them.
live closer to me than they do to Utah.
I know they do. You should go pay them a visit.
Yeah, give me their address and social security numbers when you're at it. No, I'm
There we
kidding.
go. Yeah, I'm on it. Um, but yeah, doing that, being there for my roommates, just my friends, those it can be so easy to not pay attention to the relationships in your life when you get caught up being busy with your full-time job. So for the listeners who don't know me, I'm full-time a financial analyst, as well as doing my podcasting and any other ventures that I care about outside of my full-time gig. So my schedule can fill up really quickly. And the more that it fills up, the more difficult it can be to manage relationships and to spend time with the people that I really love. And so one thing that would be one way that I will consider 2021 a success, or one way I see myself succeeding, would be by placing boundaries, by setting up my calendar to not just fill it up with work, podcast interviews, editing, all those fun things that I do really enjoy, but leaving space in there proactively to see people. Because I think what can so easily happen is I'll fill up my schedule with work and projects, and then I'll just try to squeeze people into it. And that just makes life so much more stressful. It makes you go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, which is exhausting. So that's one way I see myself succeeding this year, is by being smarter with how I'm scheduling myself out. I also, with that said, will be focusing more and more on my podcast. I think it was January 17th is when my first episode came out last year. So we're coming up on a year, and there's been some great growth, and I'm excited to continue seeing that grow and building on it. And like you said just a few minutes ago, I want to see myself being a better host. I want to see myself being a better guest, asking the great questions that Kevin McShann asks, or questions like those. And I think those are two areas that I'm really focused on, is really being attentive to my relationships, and then building up the passions in my life, be it the podcast or speaking endeavors or really anything else that my heart desires. I want to chase that. Let's go do all of it.
Fantastic. So let's tell people three effective ways to have the most epic year possible in your view. That Tommy, what can people do to do that this year, buddy?
I love it, man. Yeah. All right. Three things. So I actually shared a post not too long ago on my Instagram and Facebook
I know,
that,
that's why I asked the question.
yeah, it's brilliant. Let's go, everybody. Here are 5 simple things that we can all focus on to make 2021 our best year yet. Number 1 is exercise. Be it going to the gym or hiking, walking, whatever it is. Let's just find ways to move more that we're going to be consistent with. Number 2 is eating better. I like to say better because you don't need to eat perfect. Just take the habits you currently have and improve upon them. Number 3 is focusing on our quality and length of sleep. Both are super important. Number 4, let's focus on getting hydrated, making sure that we're drinking enough water. And number 5 is finding time to be still, to be quiet, to just be with our thoughts and check in on what's going on in our head, whether it's meditation or just chilling out on your couch by yourself and being still for a little bit. These 5 areas are really simple, but there's complexities. It's difficult to nail them down, but let's focus on them and make 2021 our best year yet. Brilliant. There were 5 things that I listed out there that people could do, and they're all really simple. One is focusing on the amount of sleep you're getting. 2 is focusing on the exercise or just the movement that you're getting. Trying to do more of it if you don't do any of it, or if you don't do much. Focusing on eating better, finding time to be quiet. And I'm drawing a blank on the 5th one, but I'm just going to throw in focusing on your relationships, like I mentioned about myself. All of those things are, at the surface, they're simple, but they're complex in the lens of, there's reasons why we don't get the sleep that we should be getting. There's reasons why we don't eat better or eat in a healthier way. I want to emphasize, I like to say eat better, because I don't believe that you should be focusing on eating perfect, because then you're setting yourself up for failure. So take your nutritional habits right now and find ways to improve upon them inch by inch, like a step by step. Maybe your first thing that you do is instead of having 3 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, you cut it down to 2. Tiny things like that. But there's reasons why we reach for the junk food when we're feeling stressed, like I mentioned I do earlier, right? And there's a lot of complexities within that, but the simple overarching goal is to focus on eating better. So there's a lot of simple things that we can do. And I would throw in a sixth one. That's get around animals, because I think that being around puppies and cats, if you're not allergic, I'm allergic to cats, but little animals like that, just that are just constantly present and full of love is so fulfilling and so therapeutic. So let's focus on all those things.
Yeah, and I would say, just for my part, it would be to find a personal identity, dominate the space that you're good in, like dominate your level of passion for whatever it is you're passionate in life for, and also to be, and I know that you will appreciate this, to be more still and presently cognizant of your surrounding around you. So that's what I would contribute to that question as well.
I love it. Yeah. Amen.
So, Tommy, tell me about your podcast and all the great stuff that's coming up with your podcast this year, buddy.
Man, yeah. So I have interviews that are currently, I'm scheduled out into April already, which is a blessing. So I have a bunch of amazing guests coming on. It's going to be a blast. People talking about anxiety, depression. I have a sports psychiatrist coming on next week
I
to
can
talk.
use that. I'm a Lions now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Amen, dude. Lions fans. My girlfriend's a Lions fan, by the way. And
Oh, I send her my most sincere of condolences.
I will, man. I will. It's tough being a Lions fan, I'm sure. Also tough being a Pats fan this year. But anywho,
Or a
um,
Michigan fan for that matter, but that's another.
uh,
Anyway,
that's a whole podcast of its own.
uh, yeah, we'll schedule it for the next 3 weeks. How
Jeez.
long it'll take Jim Harbaugh to take his pay cut, but that's okay.
Oh gosh, I know. I know. But yes, there's going to be a ton of amazing guests coming out. I'm personally finding ways to be able to reach more people, because I want more people to be involved in what's going on in the podcast. It's called Strength Through Vulnerability. It's not just a show. It's a movement, right? It's a movement to allow all people, not just men, but especially men, because I'm a dude, to realize that vulnerability is a strength. And a lot of people look at it as if it's a weakness, and it's just not. We're rewriting, we're redefining what it means to be a man, and being vulnerable is a big part of that. And so I just want people to get in touch with me, to chat me up. I want to talk to you. Tune into the show. But one of the best ways for this movement to be a thing is by engaging with other people and talking about what vulnerability means. So I just I just want people to have these conversations with me, with you, Kevin, with anybody that they know. Talk about what is vulnerability? What does vulnerability look like? Do you believe it's a strength, or do you believe it's a weakness? Like these kinds of questions, and really just work to redefine what vulnerability is.
Hey, Tommy, I know that we have developed a long-standing friendship in a short period of time, and I know that we've both been vulnerable with each other and helped each other along this podcasting journey. So I want to thank you for your friendship, your counsel, and for being with me this afternoon to talk about what it truly means to be grateful. Always great to see you, and thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, right back at you, man. I always have a blast talking to you, and I appreciate your friendship and all the words of wisdom that you've left with me. So thank you so much for this time. I really just hope that it serves your listeners and helps them to start a conversation about what gratitude is.